You felt it, didn't you? That heavy, sinking sensation pulling at the center of your chest just before you clicked this video. The tightening in your throat when you force a smile for a world that feels increasingly synthetic. You are exhausted, not from the physical labor of your day, but from the invisible, crushing weight of pretending. The truth appears quietly, so the unready will ignore it. The ready will pause. Your hesitation isn't random. It is a recalibration signal from a soul that is tired of lying. Consider this. Every time you paste a positive affirmation over a bleeding wound, you are not healing. You are committing psychological treason against yourself. You have been sold a catastrophic lie by the modern spiritual industry. They told you that if you just vibrate higher, if you just think positive thoughts, your reality will shift. But watch what happens in your body during these moments. Your stomach flutters, your jaw clenches. Your biology is violently rejecting the toxic positivity because it recognizes it for what it truly is, an archonic interference designed to siphon your life force. The ego doesn't resist what's wrong for us. It resists what's right, but challenging. We run towards the hollow comfort of good vibes while simultaneously running from the dark soil where real transformation grows. By desperately trying to manifest a life of pure light, you have inadvertently activated a hidden law of physics. You have triggered what Itzhak Bentov warned us about, and what the ancient alchemists knew as the immutable law of rhythm. You are forcing the pendulum to the extreme right, completely blind to the momentum you are building for its inevitable destructive swing back. If you are ready to drop the exhausting act, to stop fighting the matrix with its inverted rules, and reclaim your true sovereign resonance, join the awakened. Subscribe and step into the null state. We are about to tear down the scaffolding of your false reality. What you are experiencing is not a failure of your mindset. It is the inescapable mathematics of the inverted octave. And to understand the cage you are in, we must first look at the forbidden physics of how your reality is actually constructed. Let that sink in. To dismantle the trap, we must first look at the very architecture of your existence. You have been taught to view your thoughts as harmless, invisible clouds floating in your mind. But consciousness is not a metaphor. It is mechanics. According to the foundational physics explored by Itzhak Bentov, the universe is a field of conscious light vibrating at specific, measurable frequencies. Every emotion you generate is a physical force, a tangible wave rippling through the holographic matrix. When the modern spiritual industry tells you to manifest by ignoring your pain and forcing positive thoughts, they are handing you a loaded weapon and telling you it is a toy. You cannot cheat the fundamental laws of thermodynamics or wave mechanics. When you artificially manufacture a state of high vibration, forcing a smile while your soul decays, you are violently manipulating an energetic sine wave. You are pushing the amplitude to an unnatural peak. Picture this. Visualize a wave on an oscilloscope. You use all your willpower to drag the crest of that wave as high into the positive spectrum as possible. But reality operates on the principle of absolute equilibrium. For every unnatural peak you build in the conscious realm, the universe mathematically demands an equal and opposite trough in the unconscious realm. You are not eliminating the darkness, you are merely displacing it into the unseen layers of your reality. This brings us to the terrifying reality of the inverted octave. In esoteric acoustics and frequency mechanics, when a note is forced too loudly, it spawns a shadow frequency, a dissonant undertone vibrating in the exact opposite direction. Your forced joy creates an identical, invisible wave of despair that begins to pull at the fabric of your life. The harder you try to vibrate high, the more catastrophic the hidden undertone becomes. Watch what happens in your body during these moments of forced manifestation. The tightness in your shoulders, the shallow breath, the subtle trembling in your hands. This is not anxiety. This is the kinetic energy of the shadow wave building up inside your nervous system. Your biology is bracing for impact because it knows the pendulum is about to swing. You are physically holding back a tidal wave of suppressed reality. Now imagine your psyche as the wild pendulum Bentov described. The center point is your natural, neutral state. The extreme right is the artificial, forced positivity of the law of attraction. You spend years dragging that heavy pendulum as far to the right as your mental muscles can manage. You think you are ascending, but in truth, you are just building massive potential energy for an inevitable, devastating collapse. You cannot hold a pendulum at its extreme edge forever. The moment your exhaustion overtakes your willpower, the pendulum slips from your grasp. It does not gently return to the center. It violently whips across the void, crashing into the extreme left, bringing tragedy, sudden depression, and the shattering of your meticulously crafted reality. This is why trying to wake up is exactly what is keeping you asleep. The system relies on your ignorance of this mechanical law. The architects of this matrix do not want you constantly sad. They want you desperately trying to be happy. They want you caught in the brutal oscillation of the pendulum. Every time you force the positive, you create the negative, generating a massive friction within your psyche. This friction is the exact energy source that powers the machinery of your enslavement. Consider this mathematical certainty. When two opposing waves of equal amplitude collide, they do not create peace, they create destructive interference. Your conscious desire for light is constantly colliding with the massive, unacknowledged negative wave you created to sustain it. The result is a static void, where nothing real manifests except the eerie sensation that your life is stuck in a decaying loop. To escape the oscillation, you must stop pulling the pendulum. But releasing it means allowing it to swing into the very darkness you have spent your entire life avoiding. You must face the undertone, because the shadow you have been running from has not been idle. It has been quietly mutating into something entirely different while you were busy looking at the fake light. When you force the pendulum to the extreme right, where does the displaced energy of the left swing go? It does not evaporate into the ether. It sinks directly into your unconscious mind. Watch what happens in your body when you swallow an insult to maintain a high vibration. Feel that sudden nervous flutter in your stomach. That is not just anxiety. It is the kinetic energy of a shadow being born in real time. Carl Jung warned us about this exact psychological mechanism. The shadow is not merely a passive trash bin for your bad memories. It is a living, breathing accumulation of every truth you have cowardly refused to acknowledge. By desperately clinging to a false, manufactured light, You are not eradicating the darkness within you. You are simply feeding it in secret, allowing it to grow entirely unmonitored. Observe how your mind operates when raw pain arises. You feel a sudden sting of rejection, a flash of grief, and instantly your mind jumps to a distraction. You reach for your phone. You recite a positive mantra. This is the skip phenomenon, a biological reflex designed to bypass the exact frequency required for your liberation. You think you are protecting your peace, but you are merely burying a live explosive. What happens to the energetic weight of that skipped emotion? Energy cannot be destroyed. It only changes form. The suppressed anger, the unwept tears, the swallowed rage, they coalesce in the dark, stagnant waters of your psyche. They merge into an independent psychological entity. They form an egregore, a parasitic consciousness born from your own denied reality. The toxic spirituality of the modern age tells you to just turn on the light and the darkness will vanish. But light does not destroy the shadow, it defines it. The brighter the artificial light you shine upon your conscious public identity, the sharper and more dense your shadow becomes behind you. You cannot outrun a monster that is securely tethered to your own feet. Over time, this denied egregore gains autonomy. It begins to hijack your reality from behind the scenes, operating through the inverted octave. Have you ever noticed how the people who preach the loudest about good vibes often have the most chaotic, secretly tragic lives? This is Carl Jung's warning manifesting as fate. When the internal shadow is denied, it forces itself to appear as external coincidences. The tragedy is that you believe your conscious mind is the one calling the shots. You believe your vision boards and forced gratitude journals are writing your future. But your conscious mind is merely the tip of the iceberg, floating helplessly on a dark ocean of suppressed frequency. The egregore, the massive accumulation of your denied grief and anger, possesses a gravitational pull millions of times stronger than your fragile positive thoughts. If you are beginning to recognize the invisible puppeteer operating in your life, you are already breaking its hypnotic hold. The entire system relies on your continuous refusal to look into the dark mirror. If you are finally ready to stop running, to dismantle the parasite you were tricked into feeding, and to reclaim your sovereignty, make your choice. Subscribe to the channel. We are going deeper into the abyss. The shadow's revenge is absolute and mathematically precise. It will quietly sabotage your relationships, hollow out your financial stability, and manifest physical disease in your body, all to force you to feel the pain you so desperately skipped. Your frantic attempts to attract wealth are actually anchoring your soul in lack, because the shadow egregore is the one truly steering the pendulum. Watch what is happening inside your physical vessel right now. Feel that subtle nausea, the slight involuntary tightening of your jaw as you hear these words. That is the parasite reacting to being perceived. It survives purely on your ignorance. The moment you turn around and observe the shadow, the quantum collapse begins. The egregore loses its power not when you fight it, but when you stop pretending it isn't there. But why were you taught to bypass your pain in the first place? Why is the entire modern culture obsessed with keeping you smiling, striving, and aggressively positive? This is not an accident of modern psychology. It is a highly engineered harvesting system. Your forced joy is the prime currency of the matrix, and your exhaustion is its food. We must now confront the true architects of this invisible cage. Why is there a multi-billion-dollar industry built entirely around keeping you artificially happy? The modern spiritual market insists that constant joy is your natural state, and any deviation is a failure. But beneath this glittering facade lies a much darker, strictly biological reality. You are living inside a highly organized frequency trap designed for energetic extraction. You are living on a louche farm. Robert Monroe, the pioneer of out-of-body exploration, discovered a terrifying cosmic truth that shattered his own reality. He found that human emotion is not just a personal psychological experience, it is a literal, consumable energy source for non-physical entities. This harvested energy is called louche, and the most potent, high-yield louche does not come from pure, authentic joy. It comes from the severe friction of a soul desperately fighting its own shadow. The entities that govern this holographic matrix, ancient texts call them archons or the demiurge, cannot generate their own sovereign life force. They are parasitic by nature. They require a steady stream of your emotional radiation to sustain their constructed reality. But pure, grounded neutrality offers them absolutely nothing. They cannot consume stillness. They need violent oscillation. They need you constantly pushing the pendulum. You have been taught that you attract what you consciously think about. That is a comforting, infantile lie designed to keep you on the hamster wheel. You do not attract what you think. You attract what you are desperately running from. The universe responds to your core resonance, and your core resonance is defined entirely by what you suppress. When you force a positive affirmation over a deep, unresolved trauma, you are not elevating your frequency. You are creating a massive, agonizing friction within your biocircuitry. This internal war, the desperate attempt to smile while the soul screams, generates a highly viscous, dense energy. You are literally bleeding frequency, and the Archonic system is positioned right above the wound, drinking the louche produced by your exhaustion. The modern manifestation industry is the ultimate egregore trap. It weaponizes your desire for a better life. It indoctrinates you to believe that if you feel sad, you are lowering your vibration and bringing doom upon yourself. This creates an endless loop of guilt, fear, and anxiety. You become terrified of your own natural emotional rhythms, constantly policing your thoughts like a prisoner guarding his own cell. Consider the sheer amount of energy it takes to maintain your public persona. The scaffolding of your fake identity requires daily, exhausting maintenance. Every time you nod in agreement when you want to scream, every time you post a curated image of your life while your heart decays, you are burning your sovereign fuel. You are paying a daily tax of life force to the system, just for the privilege of appearing normal in a sick society. You are trapped in a self-sustaining engine of despair, disguised as spiritual enlightenment. You are powering the very simulation that keeps you isolated and hollow. The only way to starve the parasite is to completely dismantle the engine. You cannot fight it with more forced light. You must step off the pendulum entirely. You must learn the forbidden art of existing without generating friction. This brings us to the ultimate protocol. You have spent your entire life frantically turning the dial of a broken radio, desperate to find the happiness frequency through the deafening, chaotic static of the matrix. You keep tuning, adjusting, and fighting the interference, believing that if you just get the frequency right, the pain will stop. But the radio itself is a trap. You do not need to find a better station. You need to pull the plug. You must sever the connection to the receiver entirely. The modern spiritual industry commands you to repair your broken mind, but the very concept of fixing implies that the natural decay, sorrow, and entropy within you are errors in the code. They are not. They are the mathematical counterbalance of the universe. To stop the violent oscillation of the inverted octave, you must do the exact opposite of what you have been taught. You must stop trying to heal. You must drop the tools. This is the null state protocol. To understand this, we return to the mechanics of Itzhak Bentov. He described the concept of the still point, the microscopic, infinite pause that exists exactly between the inward and outward breath. It is the invisible gap between the tick and the talk of the swinging pendulum. In this absolute center, there is no momentum, there is no positive peak, and therefore no negative trough. It is the absolute zero of consciousness, a place where reality holds its breath. In this null state, you become completely invisible to the Archonic siphon. The matrix cannot track what does not oscillate. So how do you enter the still point? We apply the linger test. The next time a heavy wave of despair, grief, or suffocating anxiety washes over you, you will not run. You will not recite positive affirmations. You will not reach for your phone to trigger a dopamine spike. You will let the pendulum swing into the dark. But here is the forbidden secret. As the pendulum swings into the abyss, you will not push it, and you will not try to pull it back. You will simply sit completely still in the dark. Allow the sensation of your own internal rotting to surface. Let the fear of profound isolation, the sting of your failures, and the crushing weight of your own mortality wash entirely over your nervous system. Do not label it. Do not judge it. Watch what happens in your physical body during these moments of surrender. As you sit in the dark without resisting, you will feel a sudden violent shivering or a strange flutter in your stomach. Perhaps a sudden inexplicable sleepiness will pull at your eyes. This is not a failure. This is the somatic alchemy of your physical pain breaking down. Your biological circuitry is discharging decades of trapped, skipped trauma. Breathe directly into the hollow spaces it leaves behind. When you observe your pain without trying to fix it, you immediately stop generating friction. Without the friction of resistance, there is no emotional louche. You are essentially starving the parasite that has been feeding on your exhaustion. The egregore within you will thrash, panic, and try to induce terror because it requires your active resistance to survive. But in the null state, you offer nothing. You become a ghost in the machine. The dark waves simply pass through. This is the ancient truth Thoth recorded regarding the vibration of silence. Silence is not merely the absence of acoustic sound. It is the total absence of internal conflict. It is the forbidden art of existing entirely between two heartbeats. When you finally stop trying to vibrate higher, a profound, terrifying stillness emerges from beneath the chaotic noise of the demiurge's clock. You step out of linear decay and into the vertical pillar of the eternal now. This is the core of true Jungian integration. You do not kill the ego, and you do not slay the monster in the abyss. You simply stop reacting to their illusions. You sit with the monster in the dark, silent room until your eyes finally adjust to the pitch black. And in that moment, you realized the terrifying monster was merely a fragmented, agonizing piece of your own soul, desperately begging to be acknowledged. You strip bare the false scaffolding. The ultimate catharsis is the realization that you never had to be perfectly happy to be free. You just had to be authentic. Dropping the crushing burden of the endless healing journey is the most liberating, rebellious act you can commit against the simulation. You are no longer a battery generating friction for a dying matrix. You become the empty, silent space where the matrix itself breaks down. You are ready for the sovereign resonance. True freedom is not the endless, exhausting accumulation of positive emotion. That is the ultimate glittering trap of the demiurge. True freedom is the absolute, unshakable indifference to the pendulum swing. When you step into the null state, you are no longer fighting to stay in the artificial light, nor are you terrified of the approaching dark. You cease being the heavy weight at the bottom of the pendulum, constantly thrown from extreme joy to devastating sorrow. You become the immovable axis upon which the entire system swings. Watch what happens to your reality when you stop bleeding your life force into resistance. The scaffolding of your old manufactured life will inevitably begin to decay. Relationships built on mutual avoidance will dissolve. Ambitions fueled by the desperate need to prove your worth will simply evaporate. Do not panic as the structure falls. Let it collapse. The destruction of your false reality is a strict biological requirement for your authentic soul to breathe. You are stripping bare the illusions that have suffocated you since birth. This is the exact moment the sovereign resonance is born. You transition from a helpless participant in the Archonic game into the silent observer. When the egregore attempts to trigger your old trauma, sending a sudden spike of financial terror or a crushing wave of isolation, you no longer flinch. You do not try to think positive to chase the fear away. You simply watch it pass through your biocircuitry like a dark, heavy cloud over a vast, empty ocean. You have permanently revoked its access to your emotional loosh. As you hold the still point, the underlying physics of your reality fundamentally alter. You are no longer generating the destructive friction of the inverted octave. Without the massive undertone of shadow frequencies secretly dragging you down, your timeline naturally recalibrates. You begin to magnetize experiences and synchronicities not out of a frantic, desperate need to manifest, but out of pure, unforced alignment. You become a black hole to the Matrix's programming. Its manipulative frequencies simply vanish into your silence. Focus on your physical vessel right now. Take a slow, deliberate breath. Notice the profound emptiness in the center of your chest, a hollow space that was once filled with the chaotic, buzzing noise of constantly trying. That emptiness is not a void of despair. It is the pristine canvas of your absolute sovereignty. The tightening in your jaw is gone. The heavy, sinking feeling has lifted. The parasite is finally starving, and your soul is remembering how to stand upright. The ultimate paradox of your existence is this: you only gain absolute control over your reality the exact moment you completely surrender the desperate need to control it. You do not defeat the demiurge by fighting its frequency with a brighter, louder light. You defeat it by vibrating at a rhythm it fundamentally cannot comprehend, the vibration of absolute, sovereign silence. You step out of the linear time trap and anchor yourself in the eternal vertical now. You are no longer a battery powering your own prison. You are a sovereign architect of consciousness, awake inside the dream. The simulation is rapidly losing its grip on your mind because you have finally dared to open your eyes in the dark. If this transmission has successfully altered your frequency, do not let the system lull you back to sleep. Subscribe to the channel, hold your null state, and prepare for the next unraveling. The truth is heavy, but it is the only frequency that will set you free.